Thanks for your patience, everyone. I will now ask Mr. Gunn to provide his presentation once more with feeling.
Thank you, no problem. Hey, my name is Matt Gunn. I'm a planner for the District of Squamish. Tonight I'm presenting in regards to the public hearing for the 2020 zoning bylaw update, stage 1, agriculture 3 zoning bylaw. Our current zoning bylaw was adopted in 2011. This bylaw has been updated numerous times in the years since its initial adoption. Our new OCP was adopted in 2018. This was followed by initiation of the 2020 zoning bylaw update. A major component of that update is to align zoning with the OCP. The proposed Agriculture 3 or Agri 3 zoning amendments are intended to support OCP alignment. The zoning bylaw update is being pursued in 3 stages. The first and second stage are overlapping components which are intended to be completed this year. Stage 1 of the zoning bylaw update is intended to align zoning issues with the OCP in specific situations where current zoning could result in future outcomes that are not aligned with important OCP objectives and policies. This stage includes a number of bylaw amendments which were considered by Council for first and second reading on July 7th. The majority of these bylaws went to public hearing on July 28th. However, the public hearing for the bylaws related to Agri 3 were delayed until today due to a complication with the notification process. The 6 bylaws considered today are intended to amend the OCP land use designation for specific high flood hazard parcels, establish the Agriculture 3 zone, rezone high hazard parcels to Agriculture 3 or Agri 3, and terminate a land use contract for 2 of the parcels. The new Agri-3 zone is proposed for 3 parcels along the Squamish River with existing zoning which could allow further residential subdivision but which are subject to significant flood hazard and located in a restricted densification area. 1,000 and 1050 Laramee Road are subject to a land use contract and have existing single unit dwellings and established equestrian facilities. 1050 Depot Road is largely undeveloped and is zoned rural residential 2, which is RL2, and park, recreational, and institutional use, E3. And now we can turn the presentation over to Mr. David Rolston to discuss the risk context of these parcels.
Mr. Rolston, we just need you to unmute.
Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is David Rolston. I'm the manager of municipal infrastructure for the District of Squamish. The Integrated Flood Hazard Management Plan completed flood modeling for Squamish River floodplains. The results of modeling showed that this area is among the most hazardous in the floodplains based on a combination of flood depth and velocity. Other areas with similar hazard ratings are considered undevelopable, so areas like sloughs, areas that have already been developed, or areas with other restrictions such as agricultural land reserve or parcels with resource zoning. So this map shows areas where the hazard rating is greater than 6 in red, and these are areas that would pose a hazard to life and limb for anyone present in the area during a flood. The flood model indicated that flood depth could exceed 2.5 meters in these areas and that the velocity would exceed 3 meters per second, which are extremely hazardous conditions and exceed thresholds where provincial guidelines indicate that a decision maker may refuse consent to development. Further to this, the district completed a quantitative risk assessment in 2018 for the Squamish River floodplain, and that indicated that the risk to loss of life is in a zone that's deemed unacceptable, even if the district were to upgrade the dike to a 1 in 500 year standard, which is well above the current level of protection, and that would require tens of millions of dollars to achieve. So based on that, the district needs to consider other means of addressing risk, and appropriate land use is considered one of the best means of doing so. Less people and development in high hazard areas is one of the best means of reducing risk, and this avoidance principle is a key element of the Integrated Flood Hazard Management Plan. So based on all the above, staff believes that a low-intensity agricultural land use is the best suited for this area. I'll hand it back to Matt.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. The Agriculture 3 zone proposed for these properties is intended to support rural agricultural development in high flood hazard areas. Permitted uses include agriculture, single unit and accessory dwelling units, and equestrian facilities. To support agriculture uses and align with the regional growth strategy non-settlement area designation, which is applied to these parcels. The proposed zone includes a minimum lot size of 40 hectares. A minimum parcel size of 40 hectares is also established as a condition of use for single unit dwellings, but an exemption to the minimum lot size for single unit development is included in the zone for 1000 Laramee Road and 1050 Laramee Road to permit one single unit dwelling despite the parcel size is below 40 hectares. Proposed amendments for 1050 Depot Road include amending the OCP designation of parks, greenway corridors, and recreation to agriculture, and rezoning from rural residential and park recreation and institutional use to Agri 3. Those amendments for 1000 and 1050 Laramie Road include amending the OCP designation of parks, greenway corridors, and recreation to agriculture, and rezoning from a land use contracts to Agri 3. Termination of land use contracts associated with 1000 and 1050 are also proposed at 1000 and 1050 Laramie Road. As a note, land use contracts are intended to expire in British Columbia in 2024, so this achieves a goal that is going to need to be addressed within the coming years. The proposed amendments align with OCP objectives 11.3A and B, which reflect an intention to minimize community risk and reduce vulnerability. Additional subdivision in the area is not aligned with these policies. The amendments also align with policies 11.5E and 26.6.2, which support agriculture uses in flood hazard areas. I'd like to take a minute to answer a question council raised at first and second reading for these bylaws. The question was whether agricultural land uses are subject to provincial riparian area protection regulations, Development Permit Area 1, which is the district's environmental DPA, or other legislation. The Planning and the Environment Department have examined this issue. Staff haven't identified actual regulations that protect native riparian vegetation buffers from agricultural activities. The provincial riparian area protection regulations only apply to residential, commercial, or industrial developments. The District of Squamish DPA 1 is based on these regulations and includes an exemption for development that does not involve residential, commercial, or industrial uses. Other existing legislation does not provide protection for riparian vegetation from agricultural uses. So, consequently, agricultural land uses are not subject to riparian vegetation protection. Furthermore, local government cannot implement an environmental DPA on agricultural activities within the ALR, but an environmental DPA can be applied to agricultural land outside of the ALR. This lack of DPA applicability to agricultural land outside the ALR has been previously noted by staff and identified as a deficiency in our regulatory framework. Application of DPA 1, which is the District of Squamish Environmental DPA, to non-ALR agricultural activities would make the most sense to undertake in conjunction with the development of an agricultural DPA, which was something that was identified as a high priority within the Squamish Valley Agricultural Plan. Staff do intend to develop an agriculture DPA in conjunction with the development of agricultural zoning in 2021 as part of the zoning bylaw update phase 3, and we propose that environmental DPA regulations are applied to non-ALR land in tandem with this work to address this shortfall in regulations. I'd also like to highlight that agriculture is a permitted use on the majority of the land currently under consideration, and our environmental development permit area would not apply to agricultural activities in these areas at this time. With respect to public engagement, staff conducted public engagement at the informed level on the IAP2 participation spectrum. Proposed bylaw amendments were introduced to affected landowners to solicit feedback. Feedback from those landowners that was in alignment with the long-term vision of the OCP was incorporated into the relevant bylaw amendments. District and legislative processes for engagement and agency consultation were followed for this application. Notices of the public hearing were published in the July 9th and 16th edition of the Squamish Chief. Notices of the public hearing were mailed and hand-delivered to properties within 100 meters of affected properties. Comments received from the public have been included in the public hearing package. Feedback from affected landowners were generally not supportive of the proposed amendment. Owners of the parcels strongly objected to any rezoning that would result in the loss of development opportunities and do not believe that the rezoning process for engagement has been appropriate. One of the owners disagrees with staff's interpretation of flood hazard identified in the IFHMP, the Integrated Flood Hazard Management Plan, and do not believe the district's policies support the proposed rezoning. The third parcel indicated a preference for a minimum parcel size of 4 hectares rather than the established minimum in the zone to support the creation of more affordable rural properties. Another letter was received from a neighbor who supports the amendment in principle but had concerns with 2 elements. One concern reflected a misconception that septic systems would not be allowed, and this is incorrect. That is actually, I believe that misconception came from some comments that were made in one of the landowners' comments to the process. But the bylaws do not prohibit the use of septic systems. The other concern was regarding accessory retail sales use, which is a permitted use in the Agri-3 zone. However, though that use currently exists on properties in the area and are considered important to support the viability of existing equestrian activities in the area. That concludes staff's presentation. Following public hearing, staff recommend third reading for the bylaw amendments. And in addition, these bylaws do not require approval from any other agencies. Therefore, council does have the option of adopting the bylaws now.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. Okay, so I just have a statement to read for the public who are participating tonight. We have people on mute. Thank you. Details to participate via telephone or WebEx are displayed on the screen or will be displayed on the screen for those who have logged in from your computer or are watching the live stream of the meeting. Instructions are also included on the district website. In order to get on the speakers list, if you were on the telephone, we want you to raise your hand, so to speak, by dialing *3. Or if you're on WebEx on computer or cell phone app, by opening the participant panel by clicking on the hand icon. Please note that there will be a moderator who will communicate with speakers. When it is your turn to speak, you will receive a voice prompt via the telephone or a dialog box if you're on WebEx. Please remember to put your hand down after you've finished speaking. So if you're on the telephone, you would just hit *3 again. And if you're on WebEx, you just click the hand icon and it takes it down. Limited in-person participation is available for those unable to participate by electronic means at Brennan Park Recreation Center, Squamish Chief Activity Room. Please note that council members are not in physical attendance at Brennan Park, and in-person attendance is limited to 30 people in order to comply with the order of the Provincial Health Officer for gathering and events. Staff is available to add the names of interested parties to the speakers list and to provide direction when it is your turn to speak. We ask for your patience as we work through the speakers list in this new online and in-person format. If there are large numbers of participants, it may take some time to get through the list. Please commence your remarks by clearly stating your name and address or neighborhood and indicate which bylaw you are speaking to. Please note that speakers will be given up to 5 minutes to address council in order that everyone has the opportunity to speak. If you've already spoken and then wish to speak again to provide more or new comments, please raise your hand again, as I described earlier, or add your name to the speakers list if you are attending in person. Once I have indicated that speakers will be offered additional speaking opportunities. So with that, I will go over to our moderator to begin opening up the lines to the public.
Thank you, Mayor Elliott. We're going to take a phone call first. When you hear the message, "You are unmuted," please state your name and address for the record and which bylaw you would like to address. You have up to 5 minutes to address council, and you can go ahead. Hi there.
Oh, hi there. I'm referring to the zoning bylaw number 2200-2011, amendment bylaw for 1050 Depot Road, number 2724-2020. My name is Sylvia Smithers. I'm an invested interest in 1050 Depot Road. I'd like to address the mayor, Karen Elliott, and council members. First, I would like to speak about the possible diminishing of the value of this particular property. First, there needs to be a valid reason as to what would warrant these changes to the current land value and zoning. And the valid research is not there on the type of agriculture you are proposing. Nonetheless, this particular property is divided by just blue and is in no way feasible for agriculture. I believe that you're restricting the options for this property considerably by changing the zoning from agricultural use or from recreational use to agricultural use. In your OCP and Squamish 2040 feedback, there are numerous requests for not only what could be the possibility of single-family homes, but more for the recreational land in which this could remain. In no way do the rezoning changes follow what the official community plan laid out. Secondly, the zone change is inconsistent with the surrounding areas, again resulting in the plummeting of the property values. Third, to address an environmental standpoint, agriculture is potentially damaging ecosystem consequences. Runoff from agricultural land is a source of water pollution for inland waterways. And when you're converting wetlands to crop production or dealing with irrigation water diversion, it has brought many issues to wildlife species. To back up in your documented agricultural planning Squamish, it actually states that any built structures, wetlands, water bodies are considered to have no potential for farming. It is assumed that these areas would not be removed or filled in to create land with cultivation potential. A detailed investigation is required to confirm the suitability and trade-offs associated with converting these areas to agriculture. In addition, moving forward with the zoning changes outlined to make this land unusable, it would only encourage vagrancy and the potential for homeless to encroach on this property, which would also make it extremely difficult to protect and police your neighborhood. In conclusion, we understand there's a growth management issue in Squamish. These zoning changes are not benefiting the short or the long term of this community. And I'm trying to understand why you limit the properties outlined to agriculture when there's a continued interest and need for recreational areas. There is no benefit to changing the zoning, not at the time, effort, anticipation of the taxpayers' money moving forward. How to justify a zone change since there's no need to rezone the current neighborhood and appears to be a form of spot zoning.
Thank you very much for your comments.
We have no more callers online with their hands up. We do have some people online, but no hands. So we are going to go to Brennan Park. Just a reminder to those online, we need your hands up if you would like to speak. Star 3 if you're on the phone. And we are going to go to Brennan Park. And we have Mr. McCarter online. Hi there. Have we gotten through to Brennan Park?
Hi.
Hi there.
No.
No speakers?
No.
Thank you. So at the moment, we don't have any speakers with their hands up and nobody at Brennan Park. Just a reminder, star 3 if you would like to speak, or raise your hand on WebEx.
I'm just looking to our moderators and just giving people a moment. If there are no further speakers, I would ask if there's any information that council needs from the planning department at this time. Not seeing any hands from council. Okay, we are going back to Brennan Park. We do have a speaker there now.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Good evening, Don Carter here. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I'll make my comments brief. I wasn't going to speak at all tonight. I was waiting to hear the response from the community, and I think the one response you got is a good reflection of my thoughts on the property. We have an opportunity here to move forward with a very balanced development rather than change it to an agricultural tree zone. We've had many complications with this property over the last 14 years with the district of Squamish, with the planning department and past council members. I'm not going to speak too much to that issue, but I just want to make sure council's informed property of what's going on the property at this date. As of this date, there is 5 families living on 1,050 people road. There was a number of individuals that were living on the property without the permission of myself that have been removed. The remaining 5 stays in place due to the fact that we need security on the property because public access was not addressed properly in the expropriation of the dike. And it remains a situation that is barely controllable, even with 24/7 security at my gates, at the bridge, and with me located on the property and living on the property. We've addressed this issue with council in the recent past at COVID when it was at the highest, and there was mandatory restrictions federally on everybody to stay home. Nobody complied with that mandatory regulation by the federal government that I could see. The people that were on the property consisted of hundreds of people from Brackendale and Squamish, dogs that told, leashed and unleashed. It was well outlined in a letter I had given to council. Council to this date has not made any kind of outreach to me to try to bring this to a close and to deal with it. And as I said earlier on, it's a huge issue out there. In addition to that, back at the start of COVID, I did open up my property to essential workers to put their homes and trailers on my property because of all the parks being closed, and there was a great need for that. We did that at no cost to them. It was free. As we proceeded through the summer, I wanted to make sure that we abide by the rule of law. I'm a strong believer in that. And of course, the rule of law is some self interpretation, but nevertheless, I try to stand on that. And we made an application for a business license to extend our facility to others that were in need of parking their RVs and tenters and campers that you're well aware of. It's a huge problem in Squamish. They're all over the city. Could be parked anywhere and everywhere. We were well received with that. We've accommodated that for the last 2-3 months on the property. We did not require any site alteration permits to do the work that I did on my site. I do not need any approvals from council at this time or planning. And it was successful. Met a lot of really great people. And we at this time have stopped opening our gates for that, for those kinds of individuals at this time until we heard the presentation tonight from the public. And I've heard it by one person, and it's unfortunate that planning has suggested bringing this to the table in such a time as COVID-19. When I look around the arena here, there's nobody here but me. I don't think that was the best way to deal with this. I did not hear of this application till this spring in May from one of my lenders on my property. I instructed a mass gun that I had no idea that this was going on again, as past amendments have been done over the last 14 years. I do not live full-time in Squamish or in BC, and I travel the world a lot on other projects, and I need to be consulted with, as I have said in my letter to council, in the form of UNDRIP now, and that's United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. That was legislated for the first time in December of 2019. I need Squamish Council to abide by the rule of law and apply that framework to communicating with me and with dealing with my land. I'm also in the process of trying to have the land taken out of their jurisdiction and placed in the federal jurisdiction at least. Hopefully I'll hear something about that in the next month or so. Also, I had...
That's 5 minutes. Mr. McCarger, if you could wrap up these comments.
Well, I guess we're done then. You know, I see it's a busy night for council, and you shut down one of the stakeholders and the landowners from speaking maybe a minute longer in finishing his comments.
I was just about to say that we'll just see if there's any other speakers, and then I will come back to you if you have further comments.
Mayor Elliott, we have no other speakers online at the moment.
All right, I'm happy to go back to Brennan Park. If Mr. McCarger has more to say, I'm happy to hear and provide you another 5 minutes. But it is part of the public hearing process to stop after each 5 minutes and see if there's other speakers.
And I respect that. I apologize for my short speaking on that. I want to make sure council has a clear understanding of what's going on in this property. Is that we also have what we call Eagle River Métis Fishing Lodge and RV Park. I talked about the RV park portion, the planting that's going on there. The two top developments we're going to be placing on that property within the P3 zone, which is allowed. I'm not talking about the RL2 zone, I'm talking about the P3 zone. And I would like to have support by council to direct planning to sit down with me for the first time in 14 years, or bring in a consultant to sit down and deal with my property, 1050, and of course the other two properties right south of me. The two 10-acre parcels. I think maybe we can make some headway here that's beneficial to this community, to Brackendale, to Squamish, rather than try and turn in 80 acres of land into Ag 3. And I think the lady that spoke before me said it's fine enough, so I'm not going to reiterate her words. We really have a good opportunity here for once. And I know there's some council that I've never seen before, and there's some that has. And me, that race goes back a long time. And the mayor was on the last council. But you know, if you want my parkland as parkland, then listen to what Susan Chappelle, I think her name was, said at a council meeting about 3-4 years ago. If you want Mr. McCarthy's parkland, land for parkland, pay him for it. Don't devalue land to such a degree like you're doing, because it's just simply not right. It's not a precedent that we should be setting. And I know other people, other landowners have spoken on those issues already, and I'm not going to reiterate those issues. You all know the issues that are at hand, and you've got to really look inside yourselves and really look at what planning is saying and David Ross is saying about this property cannot be developed. We just put in $4 million worth of guyking into this property that was offered by myself to Squamish for free. and it went all the way to third reading. And Doug Race insisted that I get pulled out of queue and be put back in line with the other developers. That is not right. You cannot do that. And other council members at the time said, okay, we'll hold on McCarter, 1050 out of queue, third reading, and place them with the other developers to get this matter all settled. Since then, other developers that were in that path has had their land developed. Ex-mayor, Craig, he's one of them. So it's not been a fair approach on this land for whatever reasons by Squamish. I don't know what the reasons are, but I've been at this for 14 years. Never in my 40 years of land development has it taken us anything over 2 years to go in and out of the project. Why is there so many issues on council and on planning? It's because I came in and I created a piece of land for the first time in the history of BC and Canada in 2008 that was underneath everybody's noses, and I created an 80-acre parcel. First Nations is mad at me for taking the parcel land. Squamish is mad at me because I took their parkland that they made application for in 1975 and never finished on. So there's a lot of politics going on here. There's some of the major developers doing major pushes on me to get my land. And I'm just asking Squamish, leave me alone. I put the bridge in. I'll do the development on the land. I don't want to subdivide it now. I don't want nobody on my land. I just want to do what we can do under the current zoning. I'm not asking nothing from Squamish. 14 years, nothing. I offered Squamish the guy infrastructure, the guy right away, everything for free 4 years ago. And they chose to do what they did. Why would they do that? Now they've got a $21 million compensation thing that my lawyers have put against Squamish that we're working on right now. We should be getting that package in about 60 days. $21 million is coming out of the taxpayers' money. Plus, the provincial government already put $4 million in for something that was given to you for free. What happened? Where did we go off? Where did we go off the track? This is not normal business. Something's going on here. I think all of you need to sit down and see where you're getting your direction from going forward with a plan like this. It doesn't help your tax base. And that's all I'm going to say. Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. McCarger. I'm just going to look to our moderator, see if there's any hands up. That's *3, or I'm going to the WebEx, just hitting the hand icon.
Nobody lined up to speak,
Okay.
Elliot.
I will go back to council to see if council has any questions or issues of clarification for staff at this time. Seeing none. Now that I've heard from everyone on the speakers list, it is a requirement that I ask 3 times if there is anyone else who wishes to speak before we can close the public hearing. So for the first time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? For the second time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? For the third and final time, is there anyone else who wants to speak or make a submission? Not seeing any further speakers, not seeing a raised hand from council. Please note that council members are not permitted to receive any further submissions or hear either from a proponent or opponent to an application once the public hearing has been concluded. So this means we can't speak to you out in the community or receive emails or phone calls on any of these bylaws until a decision on the bylaws has been made. Any and all communication from this point forward must be channeled to staff. If there are no further speakers, our moderators have none on their computers. There are none at Brennan Park. I declare the hearing closed. Thank you very much to the speakers who participated this evening. So, Council, I did declare closed. I said the words. If there are no speakers, I declare the hearing closed. Council, we can entertain third reading this evening. That is an option available to Council at this time. I'm not seeing any hands. Yes, Councillor Pettengill.
I'm prepared to move third reading.
I believe we have to do these individually.
And you can also consider adoption at the same time, third and adoption.
Okay, so our corporate officer has just indicated to me, Councillor Pettengill, that you have the choice of entertaining third reading or third reading and adoption. So if you could be clear about which of those you are putting in the motion forward on.
I'm just going to put forward third reading.
Third reading. So this is for the first bylaw, the OCP amendment bylaw, number 2746, 2020.
Yes.
Is there a seconder to that motion? That is seconded by Councillor French. Any discussion?
I'll just say briefly, there's been some missteps in this in terms of communication. So it has gone on for a while, and I guess the plus side of that, it has allowed for some more time for correspondence and communication. There has been a lot to read and think about. As I read through the materials, though, it does seem to me that this is most consistent with our OCP and our other policies like hazard management plan. So that's why I'm moving third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Pettengill. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak to this? I think it's important to me that we never entertain an OCP amendment. Oh, I see your hand, Councillor Stoner. Did I see your hand? Go ahead. I'll hold my comments.
I'm hesitant to support this simply because I have a hard time considering an OCP amendment and a zoning change on the same evening as a public hearing, recognizing that we didn't have a huge amount of speakers. I do think it is usually helpful for my thought process to take some time in between that consideration of the public hearing process and then following third reading.
Thank you. Any other speakers? I will be supporting this motion. We did receive submissions prior to the public hearing, and I appreciate the correspondence that we received. I appreciate the 2 submissions this evening. And I don't think councils ever take an amendment to an OCP lightly, and but I think that these changes reflect what we were trying to achieve with the adoption of the OCP in 2018, and the bylaw amendments that follow around the zoning bylaw are meant to align with that. So I will be supporting the motion. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, is there a councillor that wishes to put forward any of the bylaws? Councillor Race?
Sorry, having trouble unmuting. I'll move number 2.
This is amendment bylaw number 2721-2020. That is be given third reading. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Herford seconds. Any comments, Councillor Race?
None.
Any other comments from council? I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Would council like to entertain third reading of the next bylaw? This is number 2724 for 1050 Depot Road. Councillor French, you are moving that. Is there a seconder for this one? Councillor Anderson, thank you. Seconds. Any comments, council? Councillor French?
No, I've not.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson, go ahead.
Yes, if you can hear me, Chair.
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I believe the fundamental issue with all of these bylaws that we're looking at tonight is due diligence in the face of well-identified natural hazards, extremely hazardous conditions, to quote our engineering department's report. The matter of the OCP has been addressed by several of our correspondents and our objectives, but this is an objective. Due diligence with natural hazard risk is a unique priority in our OCP. But we have also discussed the alignment with provincial guidelines. I refreshed my memory of a court case that was finally concluded in the District of North Vancouver, or concerning the District of North Vancouver in 2014. It was a case that was launched in 2008 over a tragic fatality. The analogies are hardly there, but really it's the lessons of due diligence, the necessary precautions, and assessment of risk, and avoiding the pain, the tragedy, and the costs, and years of court issues and costs. In that case, I think it's very important for municipalities to take the issues of natural hazards very seriously. I trust that the district is and will be doing its appropriate part in not fostering trespassing on this property. This is an issue that Mr. McCarter and other correspondents have referred to. I do accept Mr. McCarter's concern that to quote, if you want a park, pay for it. But of course, that isn't our objective here. That is not what we're up to, and I hope we're clear enough on this matter. Finally, I hope there are opportunities to be realized in consultation with the district and other parties with respect to developing a sustainable development of these lands to some satisfaction for the owners and stakeholders in these lands. So I'll be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anderson. Any other comments from council? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Stoner.
Thank you. Just to follow on with Councillor Anderson's comments, I too will be supporting this motion. I think the staff presentation and previous correspondence has made it really clear, along with the other pieces of the zoning bylaw amendment in phase 1, are really an effort to align our zoning bylaw with the OCP. And this is just another step in that process. I do think that there is very strong rationale that these lands are located in a restricted densification area. And it's very clear with our quantitative risk assessments that the risk of loss of life is deemed unacceptable even if we get that dike up to 1 in 500-year level dike, which would be tens of millions of dollars, which we simply do not have. I think, as Councillor Anderson pointed out, it is really critical for municipalities to take into context the natural hazard risks that our population is exposed to. And we know that flooding is going to be exacerbated with the impacts of climate change. And so these properties that are really already identified as unacceptable risk levels potentially get even more so if those processes are exacerbated by climate change. So on those accounts alone, I will be supporting this resolution, and I thought it's a good justification for us to move in this direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stoner. Any further comments from council? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Would anyone be moving bylaw number 2725, 2020 for 1000 Laramee Road? Moved by Councillor Stoner. Is there a seconder? Councillor Anderson seconds. Thank you. Any comments on this one from council? I think my colleagues have captured the general tone of the prudence with which we are moving forward with these bylaw amendments, and I think it's important that we do protect against risk of loss of life when we have the knowledge that these are extremely dangerous parts of the floodplain, and that no amount of engineering can move us below that sort of acceptable risk level. So I think this is the right thing to do at this time, and still provide a use to the property owners. I will call the question on bylaw number 2725. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. District of Squamish zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw number 2726. This is for 1050 Laramee Road. I will move that. Is there a seconder? A second by Councillor Stoner. Any comments from council? I will call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And finally, the District of Squamish Land Use Contract Termination Bylaw for 1000 and 1050 Laramee Road. This is bylaw number 2743-2020 that we consider third reading. Moved by Councillor Race, seconded by Councillor French. Any comments? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Council, a motion to terminate, please. Moved by Councillor Herford, seconded by Councillor Stoner. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Council. Thank you to the public. Thank you to our staff who made the logistics happen for tonight.